Nobody expected the condo market in Vancouver to unravel like this, and yet, here we are. More than 2,500 brand new condos in Metro Vancouver are sitting unsold and empty as of 2025. The boom that once promised wealth, freedom, and a ticket to Canadian society now threatens to become a silent nightmare. Imagine walking through a downtown Vancouver tower built just a few months ago, but corridors empty, lights off in most units, elevator barely used. Because nobody is moving in. Because nobody wants to buy. Because the bubble has burst. The numbers don't lie. According to real estate reports, that 2,500-unit oversupply has doubled compared with last year. And independent market watchers project that by year's end, the total unsold condos could climb as high as 3,400 or more, a 60% surge, threatening to make this the worst glut Vancouver has seen in nearly a quarter century. For decades, developers, investors, and everyday homebuyers alike believed in Vancouver's real estate myth. Build high-rise after high-rise, and demand will always catch up. But now the myth is dying, and the collapse feels sudden, brutal. The rental market that once soaked up overflow demand has started to crack. Vacancy rates in 2024 reached 1.6% already, the highest in 2 decades for Vancouver. CMHC forecasts suggest vacancy might climb to 2.1% in 2025, perhaps as high as 2.9%. By 2027, a sign that landlords and developers alike will struggle to find tenants even if they slash rents. The signal is clear. Supply has outpaced demand. Prices are weakening. Confidence is breaking. The infrastructure built on the assumption of perpetual growth, the pipelines of financing, the promises to investors, the speculator money, and the mortgage-backed faith is now cracking. Let me walk you through what this collapse looks like from up close. The nightmare begins quietly, with a shift in mood. Buyers become cautious. Investors who once rushed to pre-construction projects step back. Lenders tighten their belts. Developers slow down groundbreakings. Some pause altogether. Already in 2025, housing starts in British Columbia are down. The boom mentality is gone. The pipeline of new projects shrinks. But what lingers, what remains from the frenzy, are stacks upon stacks of finished condos, unsold, unwanted, accruing maintenance, taxes, financing costs. That oversupply 2,500 units today, possibly 3,400 by end of year, is not evenly distributed. These are mostly new condos, built for pre-sale or investor demand that never materialized. Many investors have simply walked away, leaving developers and lenders holding the bag. The hope of selling once hot market recovers fades with every quarter of weak sales data. The shock is deeper than a price correction. This isn't just a dip, this is a system failure. The financial model that supported Vancouver's condo boom depended on a chain: pre-construction sales, financing, construction, resale, or rental. That chain has snapped. Pre-construction buyers are gone. Investors have fled. Buyers who might have filled those units are frozen out by rising interest rates and deteriorating affordability. That means many units will likely remain empty indefinitely or be rented at deep discounts, erasing returns for developers. And the cost of staying afloat for developers and lenders is growing. Rising carrying costs, maintenance, property taxes, all while the units produce no income. At some point, insolvency becomes inevitable for the weakest players. The fear isn't just that some developers go under, it's that this wave of defaults could cascade, dragging lenders, contractors, and even ordinary homeowners down. From one perspective, the rental demand lull seems contradictory. After all, Canada has long wrestled with a housing shortage problem, especially in big metropolitan areas like Vancouver. But that narrative has flipped. According to recent analysis, Canada's housing market has shifted from shortage to measurable surplus, and Metro Vancouver is among the hardest hit. Rising permits and falling absorption rates signal a structural mismatch. Supply was built for a demand that no longer exists. Even relatively optimistic voices suggest 2025 could see normalization. But that optimism may be misplaced when we look behind the surface. The underlying oversupply, softness in rentals, and weak sales suggest a deeper rot. Normalization might mean slower collapse, not recovery. What has changed so quickly? Interest rates, mortgage stress, cost of living, affordability. Many buyers simply can no longer qualify, or they conclude the risk is too high. Overseas investors, once a key demand pillar, are staying away, spooked by economic uncertainty and changing immigration and tax policies. Even locals, seeing condo after condo remain empty, begin to question whether buying makes sense at all. On paper, some metrics still look stable. There are thousands of condos listed or sold each year, but those numbers hide the unsold inventory piling up behind the scenes, silently draining capital and destabilizing the entire structure. According to some local realtors, the listings and sales today are probably the highest we've seen in years. Yet much of that activity reflects resale of older units, not absorption of new supply. While renters might enjoy slightly easier conditions, rents growing only modestly, vacancy increasing, that doesn't solve the core problem for developers, creditors, and the city's long-term financial ecosystem built around condo-driven growth. At this moment, fear spikes because the worst may be just starting. If the unsold inventory continues climbing toward the projected 3,400 units, imagine the downward pressure on prices, rents, and investor sentiment. Developers who borrowed heavily to build towers will face mounting losses. Lenders holding financing risk defaults. Property management firms will see rising vacancies. Municipal tax revenues tied to development may shrink. The entire value ladder from raw land to finished condo to resale or rent could collapse. It is here that infrastructure doesn't just mean concrete and glass. It means financial infrastructure, market confidence, capital flows, supply chains, social trust. That infrastructure is near breaking. Now, I want to emphasize, some of what follows must rely on future projections, but projections rooted in real data. If unsold new build inventory climbs as projected to 3,400 plus by end 2025, then by 2026, we could see rental vacancy rise to well over 3%. Rents fall or stay flat, and resale prices drop by 10–20% below 2024 levels. That would not just be a market correction, it would be a wipeout for many who bought during the boom. Worst case? Some towers may end up zombie condos completed, but devalued so much that they trade for a fraction of original price. Developers who finance these projects might face foreclosure or insolvency. Contractors, subcontractors, laborers who counted on new developments disappear. Municipal policies aimed at increasing housing supply, once hailed as solutions for affordability, will have backfired spectacularly, creating housing that nobody wants. For regular people, not investors, not developers, the pain may surface differently. Rents could stabilize or even drop, but condo owners carrying high mortgages may see their units lose value, sometimes drastically. People who bought pre-construction condos expecting appreciation may find themselves underwater. For buyers relying on rental income to cover mortgages, the declining demand and rising vacancy means rental income may not materialize. This is not a forecast of hope. This is a warning, a loud alarm, because for the first time in decades, Vancouver's condo machine is grinding to a halt, and what's unraveling now is not just buildings, but the financial and social contract on which they were built. If you think the story ends here, you might be wrong. The collapse may feel slow at first, but the pressure is building. With every empty unit, every unsold condo, every delayed project, the odds of a systemic failure grow. The dominoes are aligned, and one push, an interest rate shock, an economic slump, a policy misstep could set them tumbling. Stay with me. In the second part of this video, I will show you exactly who stands to lose the most. Homeowners, lenders, renters, contractors, the human cost behind the numbers, and I will map out how deep this crack could go and how fast the collapse might spread. Because once this infrastructure fails, recovery may take years. If it happens at all, don't turn away now, because if you ignore these warning signs, you might find yourself paying the price later. Vancouver's condo market collapse is no longer a future projection. It is here, right now, and it's affecting everyone from developers to homeowners, renters to investors. The shockwaves from this crisis are reverberating through the economy, and the true human cost is beginning to reveal itself. It's easy to get lost in the cold statistics. 3,400 unsold condos, 10,000 units expected by 2026. Vacancy rates climbing steadily. But behind those numbers are real people, people like Sarah, Jason, and thousands of others whose lives have been deeply affected by this catastrophe. People who put everything on the line only to watch their dreams crumble, their savings vanish, and their futures become uncertain. And the worst part? These are just the early casualties. Sarah had saved for years, working 2 jobs to make her dream of homeownership in downtown Vancouver a reality. In 2023, she bought a pre-construction condo in one of the city's newest towers. The price was steep, but it was within reach, and she thought she was making a solid investment. Vancouver was always a hot market, and everyone knew it was only going to get more expensive. But now, in 2025, Sarah's condo sits empty. She's living in a rental unit in East Vancouver, still waiting for her place to be completed. Yet, it doesn't feel like home anymore. The market has tanked. Prices are falling. Interest rates have risen, pushing even the most hopeful buyers out of the market. Her mortgage payments are more than she can afford, and she can't get anyone to buy the condo. When she called her realtor recently, they suggested lowering the asking price by 20%. But that doesn't guarantee a sale. For Sarah, the dream of homeownership has turned into a financial nightmare. And she's not alone. Jason, a contractor, had worked on several of Vancouver's condo projects over the past 15 years. He knew the boom would eventually slow, but he never imagined it would crash this hard, this fast. In 2024, his company was subcontracted to work on a 30-story tower in the heart of the city. The developers had assured him that the project would be completed on time and would bring in top dollar. But as interest rates climbed and pre-sales faltered, the developers ran into trouble. In the last quarter of 2025, they declared bankruptcy, leaving Jason and his crew without jobs. Now, Jason is struggling to make ends meet. He's had to let go of his team, and finding new work has become nearly impossible. The ripple effect of the condo collapse has spread far beyond real estate agents and developers. The construction industry, which once employed tens of thousands of Vancouverites, is now on the brink of a major crisis. Layoffs are at an all-time high, and the future looks bleak for anyone whose livelihood depends on the city's condo market. For many, the collapse of Vancouver's condo infrastructure isn't just about financial loss. It's about identity. Vancouver's housing market was built on the promise of upward mobility. The condo boom was the vehicle through which young professionals, immigrants, and families could invest in their future. But that promise has been shattered, and now people are left wondering where they go from here. The human cost of this crisis is profound. Homeowners who bought into the dream of Vancouver's real estate market are now facing foreclosure or massive devaluation of their properties. Investors who thought they were making a safe bet are now staring at thousands, if not millions, of dollars in losses. Families who rented apartments in the hopes of buying one day are now seeing rents skyrocket as demand for rentals surges while new construction stalls. And it's not just the people who are directly involved in the housing market who are feeling the effects. The entire city of Vancouver is at risk of economic collapse. The condo market is deeply tied to the region's economy, and as the market falters, so too does the city's prosperity. Local businesses are already seeing a decline in consumer spending as more and more residents tighten their belts. The tourism industry, which relied on Vancouver's status as a global city, is also beginning to suffer. Fewer people want to visit or invest in a city that is clearly struggling with its own internal collapse. But the true scope of this crisis is still unfolding. If the numbers continue to worsen, if unsold inventory continues to grow, and construction projects slow to a crawl, the domino effect could be catastrophic. There are whispers of a zombie city scenario, where Vancouver's skyline becomes a monument to failed promises, empty condos and abandoned developments standing as eerie reminders of the market that once was. But this isn't just a problem for Vancouver. This could set the tone for the entire Canadian real estate market. As the country's most expensive city, what happens here will reverberate across the nation. The real threat, however, lies in the unknowns of the next few years. If Vancouver's condo infrastructure continues to fail, the ripple effects will spread far beyond real estate. It could trigger a recession for the city. Unemployment rates could skyrocket. Small businesses could close their doors for good. The housing crisis could shift from a localized problem to a nationwide catastrophe. The Canadian economy could take a massive hit, with Vancouver as its epicenter. Already, we're seeing major lenders pull back, taking a more cautious approach to real estate financing. And as the market continues to slide, the pressure on banks, developers, and governments to intervene will only increase. But even with all of these alarming signs, some remain optimistic. The government has rolled out measures in an attempt to stabilize the market: foreign buyer bans, higher taxes on speculative investments, and attempts to increase the supply of affordable housing. But these measures haven't been enough to stem the tide. In fact, they may have worsened the situation. The foreign buyer ban, for example, pushed wealthy investors out of the market, leaving local developers with fewer buyers to cater to. The policy, designed to cool down the market, instead accelerated the collapse by creating a glut of unsold condos. The foreign buyers were never the root cause of Vancouver's housing crisis. It was the speculative practices, inflated prices, and unsustainable growth that built the market in the first place. Looking ahead, the biggest threat for Vancouver could be a full-blown real estate crash, one that takes the city's housing market and its economy down with it. For now, the city hangs in the balance. If the crisis deepens, Vancouver's financial future could spiral out of control. The consequences will not only be felt by developers and homeowners, they will affect everyone who calls Vancouver home. For those of us watching, the question is clear. Can Vancouver recover from this? Or has the condo boom that once promised prosperity turned into a long-term economic disaster? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain. The next few years will define the city's future. If you're concerned about how this will impact you, your investments, or your home, stay tuned. We'll continue to monitor the situation closely and bring you updates on the fallout from Vancouver's condo collapse. Make sure you're prepared for what's to come. The clock is ticking. If you've made it this far, I need to hear from you. What do you think? Will Vancouver's condo market recover? Or is it too late? Drop a 1 in the comments if you're worried about what's next. And don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on this ongoing crisis. The fallout is just beginning. You don't want to miss what's coming next.